All summer long, I've been inviting everyday VOpreneurs onto the show to ask their most pressing business and marketing questions. And as summer comes to a close, there's one final episode left in the summer series and one final question to be asked. And here to do it, welcome to the show, Steven Blair.
Hi, Mark. How are you doing?
I am doing well, and I am looking forward to your question because I know that you have a question on a subject that I like to talk about a lot. So this is going to be a good one for me.
All right, Mark, I'll ask my question. Now, you do a lot of reading on subjects of various things, mostly, from what I understand, marketing, self-help, and biographies and autobiographies of very successful people in history. And you've recommended some great books, and I've read some of those books. Now, my question to you is, how the heck do you pick these books? Do you have like a predetermined list? And I know that you said that you like to go to the library to find your books. So when you go to the library, do you have a predetermined list, or do you just kind of go, walk up and down the aisles of the categories that you're interested in and just go, that looks like an interesting book. I think I'll read that one.
There are a couple of different strategies that I have at play for the books that I pick out. The library is definitely one of them. And I have my middle daughter to thank for that. She is 11 years old. The kid reads like nobody that I have ever known. She sets reading records in her school every year. And so she loves to go to the library. So I got into the habit of taking her to the library. And while she's, looking for her books, I start walking around and looking for mine. My favorite place that I have found with our local library is usually they have a shelf or a section that is all the newly arrived stuff. And so generally speaking, because I don't want to say cheap, but sometimes I'm frugal, the brand new books on Amazon, those are the books that are selling for, $25, $35 or whatever, right? So if I can find those books at the library, take them out for free, then, perfect deal. So I will kind of peruse the newly arrived section at the library. On the flip side is Amazon. If you're not checking the Amazon Kindle daily deals, you are missing out on an entire lifetime worth of education. So I will check Kindle daily deals probably a few times a month. And oftentimes I can buy books for like 99 cents, $1.99, a couple bucks, whatever. And so there's an incredible opportunity to find books in those two different places. That's where it starts for me. Nice.
So, when you're picking these books, let's say you go on Amazon or you go into the library and you find the new section, and does a book strike your fancy, or how do you do it?
Yeah. So you mentioned in the beginning, actually, you got me pegged pretty good. It's biographies, business, and self-help. Those are kind of the three different categories that I'm always looking for. So from a biography standpoint, I love learning from people who have come before me. Tony Robbins talks a lot about modeling, right? Why should I go out and reinvent the wheel? Somebody's already done it. So if I can learn how they did it, I jump the learning curve or whatever. So when it comes to biographies, I love entrepreneurs, political figures, historical figures. So some of the ones that I've read recently, Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, which if you have never read about the founding story of Nike, absolutely fascinating. I don't know why it took me so long to read that book. I literally just finished that one a few weeks ago. Edison by Edmund Morris, obviously Thomas Edison, a pretty historical figure and an incredible entrepreneur, although maybe not. He was a great inventor, but he wasn't really a great entrepreneur. For a guy who created everything he created, he seemed to be broke a lot. But The Snowball by Warren Buffett, about Warren Buffett, that was another really good one that I enjoyed. I recently finished a 3-volume set on Theodore Roosevelt, another set by Edmund Morris. And so those are the kinds of people that I like studying biographies of, because I feel like every one of them has something to teach me. And even if I read through that entire book and I just walk away with one nugget, it was still worth my time, I think, to pick up that one little nugget. When it comes to business books, obviously there's always lessons to be learned in business books. And when I say business, what we're talking broad category of entrepreneurship, marketing, social media, all of that sort of stuff. And so I'm always on the lookout for great business books that I can, again, take a lesson from and somehow find a way to apply it to my own voiceover business. Some of the favorites recently in that category, I would say After Steve, which was a great book about Apple after Steve Jobs and how the company has changed. Amazon Unbound was a great book. Brad Stone wrote that one. There was recently a movie that came out about BlackBerry. It might have been called BlackBerry. I don't even remember now, but it was, I went and saw this movie because I was fascinated by BlackBerry. I mean, the company it was founded in a town about an hour away from where I live. And I watched this movie and I'm like, this cannot be real. Like, it's supposed to be based on BlackBerry and the story of BlackBerry, but I'm watching this movie and it's so crazy. I'm like, this cannot be real. So I actually came home from the movies that night and bought the book. It's called Losing the Signal. And it was actually what the movie was based off of. So I had to read the book to find out how close to, historically accurate the movie was. But if you want to just read a fascinating story of a startup, that book, Losing the Signal, is that was quite the book, and definitely some lessons to be learned from that one as well. What was the other category? Self-help, right? Right. So self-help, I'm looking for tips and hacks. I'm thinking productivity, time management, mindset, things like that. They're going to help me in life and business in general. Some of my recent favorites from there, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Just a brilliant book that I think every person should read, not just every business person. I recently reread the Prosperity series by Randy Gage. Those books are probably 10 or 12 years old now, maybe, but and I've read them before, but I recently reread those, and that's a lot about, there's a lot of mindset. And I think everybody, whether they realize it or not, has money blocks, and they have narratives around money that are not serving them and that are holding them back. And reading a book like that, or reading a book series like that, I think can be really helpful to helping you to identify some of those things and getting past some of those things. And How to Grow a Small Business by Donald Miller. That was a great one that I read recently. Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. So another money book that's a very popular subject for me, money and wealth building, because I want to be able to do those things, right? I want to be able to take care of my family and be able to afford to retire one day. And so, those are the kinds of books that help me to learn how to do that. So those are a few of the categories that I'm looking for. But I'm telling you, man, Amazon Daily Deals, that's where it's at.
Right. So you're the epitome. From when I think about an entrepreneur, I think you're the epitome of somebody that has taken what they've learned and really applied what they have learned. And it seems like you say that you read like a book a week or something like that. And you take nuggets, like you said, from all these books. And it seems like, being so successful as you are, how do you replace things that you're doing with what you're learning, or how do you apply all this?
I don't like to fart around. And so a great example of this, Laura Doman, voice actor, someone who I appreciate and admire. She recently sent me a marketing book in the mail, and it was a book that she had the opportunity to contribute to. And so while I was on vacation, I said, I'm going to read this while I'm on vacation, while I've got some downtime. And so I sat down and started reading the book. And that night that I was, the one night that I was reading it, it's like, I don't know, 11:30, quarter to 12 at night. And I'm sitting in this cabin in the woods in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. And I'm reading this book. My family's all asleep or whatever. And I read this one nugget in the one chapter. And I was like, that is so freaking brilliant, that I actually went and got my laptop and picked it up and started working on how I was going to implement that one idea right now. And so I think every once in a while, I do get something like that. I get a nugget that immediately it turns into, I could find somebody that I could talk to about that on the podcast, or I could turn this into a YouTube video, or I could make a really great social media post from this, or I could implement this change on my website, or let me try this type of marketing email, that I've learned, or whatever. So sometimes it's just immediately taking that thing and implementing it. At the same time, there's a lengthy database of notes in my in my Apple Notes that are all different ideas that I've picked up along the way that I'm looking for the right opportunity to employ them, or waiting for the right opportunity, or I want to hold on for later because it's something that I want to try down the road. But I say that all the time. The information only has value if you do something with it, right? It's no different than you go to a voiceover conference and you come home with a great big notebook of all of the things that you've learned. But if you don't take that notebook and turn it into action items and assign deadlines to it, then what good is a notebook filled with information?
Right.
It's got no value, right? And so that's a big part of it, right? You can read all of these books and learn all of these things, but if you're not actively turning them into action items and actively implementing them into your life or business, then you got a whole bunch of information that is just taking up space in your brain. So I would rather do something with it.
Right. So the tools that you use to put these nuggets, as you say, put the nuggets either into play right away, or put them in your memory bank, or store them someplace so you can refer to them in the future. So you use like your notes on your phone, or is there a particular place, or are there various places that you put these?
Yeah, primarily it's Apple Notes. I'm one of these guys that I've been using a computer for way too long. And so I basically all but lost the ability to handwrite anymore, right? Like pick up a pen and a piece of paper or whatever. So I last year, I think it was, I bought an iPad Pro so that I could get the Apple Pencil. And so now I can actually handwrite notes, even though I'm putting that into my iPad. Because if I write a whole bunch of handwritten notes in a notebook, my problem then is it's not searchable, right? And so now if I want to implement an idea that I came across 6 months ago, I got to flip through 6 months of pages in my notebook trying to find that idea again. Whereas if I can write everything in Apple Notes, I still get to handwrite. I still get to have that feeling. And there is something I will say about typing a note versus handwriting a note, and how, at least in my brain anyway, how I process it. But then I also have something that's really easily searchable. So it makes it really easy for me to go back and find some of those things later on down the road. And so I've got a couple of different folders. This one's for voiceover, this one's for coaching, this one's for a course, this one's for social media content or something like that. So I've set up different notebooks and then put notes inside of each of those notebooks to correspond with whatever the nugget is that I've picked up and I want to put into practice down the road.
All right, that sounds great. Wow, these are pearls of wisdom, Mark. As always, as always. Do you also do audiobooks, or is it pretty much physical books that you like, or reading them in Kindle?
I don't do audiobooks. I've always just read. I prefer to read a book that I can hold in my hand, but the available storage space in my house dictates that I had to start using Kindle. There's only so much room for so many bookshelves. And the other thing was I can buy like 3 or 4 books on Kindle for every one book that I was buying like in print and having shipped. And so primarily I'm doing the Kindle thing. But the big part for me was I was a horrible student in high school, and I never went to college. I started working in radio right out of high school, and got my first full-time job like 6 months after I graduated. And so the plan at one point was work in radio for a little bit, make some money, go to school. Well, then when the opportunity came to go to school, I was like, why in the world am I going to drop tens of thousands of dollars to go to school to learn how to do something that I have a full-time job doing already? And so I skipped college. And so I don't have a, heavy duty education, post-secondary or anything like that. My entire education, everything that I have learned that has allowed me to build my business to this point, it really has come from reading books. And I tell my kids all the time, the bucks are in the books. The bucks are in the books. If you can learn how to read and learn how to enjoy reading, you can literally find a book that can teach you how to do just about anything that you would ever want to do or know how to do, right? Just like some people will go to YouTube and search everything up on YouTube. Same thing you can do with a book. And you can't say that you can't afford it, because you can go to your library and you can get a free library card and you can learn all of this stuff. And so everything that I've learned about marketing, about social media, about sales, about the coaching side of things and running a small business and all of that sort of stuff, the vast majority of that I've picked up from reading books and doing it either from the library or from the Kindle Daily Deals.
Wow, that's great, Mark. I totally agree with you because I did get an education in college, and that education was pretty much, I majored in music, which has helped me in my voiceover career.
Yep.
But as far as the actual nuts and bolts of how to do this business and stuff like that, I've learned it from you, from your marketing playbook, and just like you say, reading, talking to people, going to conferences and things like that. And that's how I'm learning too. So I really appreciate your information. That's wonderful. So I'm gonna start reading a lot more, Mark. I can tell you that much.
I will put all the different books that I mentioned in this episode. I'll link them up in the show notes. So if anybody wants to go back and pick up any of those or look for any of those, I will do it. But before we go, let me put the question back to you, Steven. What are you reading right now? Do you have a book recommendation for me? Because I'm always on the lookout for something.
Well, I tell you, I'm working my way through Jen Sincero's book, and I think you've already read this one because I think I got the recommendation from you. So it's You're a Badass at Making Money. So
that's a great book.
I'm learning a lot from that book, and thank you.
Everybody should read that book. That's one that every year when I do my mastermind group, I recommend that book to people. That I think that you should read that book. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? We've all got narratives around money. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. More often than not, they are bad. And sometimes we need to get over those narratives and adjust our mindset before we can even start to achieve a level of success in our business, because those money blocks are the things that are holding us back. So that is a great book recommendation. Well, Steven, thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope this answers your question and builds out your library of potential reading material for a few more months.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark. You've given me an entire year's worth of, of reading material, and I thank you so very much. Appreciate it.